me.
Huh?
This is hiding from me.
I'll get somewhere in a minute. I gotta find, I had another one. I don't remember this, so. Drop me look for a moment. Or two. Okay. Go get paper.
Yeah.
So if you look, or didn't look, I'll tell you. But you're getting an extracurricular activity added to you after class. But on the back side is homework. And it's not for tonight, it's not pertaining to tonight, but you're gonna need it. So everybody look at that and make sure that I've clarified in
So-
clear English what that means.
Like not Dante's Inferno over here.
You can do however you want in your own words, but just make some notes for yourself. But anything you find, make sure you put where it's at, because if we start digging into some stuff about it, then we do want to be able to find where you found it
Back it
at.
up.
Or you may not remember something in there and you want to go back to it. So just be sure to work on that. Future, some point in time in class, we're gonna get into some things. And so when we do, we need to know some stuff, and so take that with you and dig on that and use that, so. Tell Tony, don't lose your paper. That's word of advice, Tony, don't lose your paper.
I gave my cousin's wife a whole bunch of our lessons, cause she teaches.
There you
Tell
go.
her it's copywritten, I charge for that.
$5 a sheet.
Didn't she? You sent her
So we're having
two
fun.
things to watch.
Yeah, tell her we're having fun, right? No copycat. So, you know, what did we go over last week? Anybody remember what we talked about and discussed last week?
That big old word, I think it's
Kleptomaniac?
Yeah.
Okay.
urge to steal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And what did we talk about with regarding being kleptomaniacs? Who is a kleptomaniac?
Hold on.
Winona Ryder.
Huh?
Winona Ryder.
Okay.
She actually,
Not wrong.
It's a bad urge.
she's got trouble for stealing.
Who do we say is the kleptomaniac? Who did we say the kleptomaniac was?
Devil.
The devil. Okay. And what did we talk about that he is so wonderful and notorious for doing?
Stealing your joy.
Okay. He's stealing us blind, robbing us daily. And so, I heard some things, that comes along every now and then, and we've got some online viewers that's watching. Now, I'm gonna expound on this for just a moment. He don't care that I tell this, but, every night, George and Jess and Riley have been reading out of the Bible together, every night. And wherever they read and study and whatnot. But on Friday nights, they're watching us live as part of their Bible reading. So, it just happens that Riley sent word that she was ready. So, if you can tell, she was ready to
She
go.
looks very ready.
We did talk about some things about the influence that some people have, and how the devil likes to oppress those urges and influences. And if you all recall last week that I announced that Lois had graduated and became a snake handler. And if you remember, it did not go well. Well, unfortunately, some others were influenced by her also, and they also have become captive to some things by influence. So, there's others that got into the same problem that Lois got into. So she wasn't alone in the running the race that we thought, what to deal with, especially with some of these others. And God only knows what Donna's up to. So, but if you see her at Walmart like in that attire, give me a picture, because we don't know what she's doing at Walmart with the walking stick and her attire on. But be sure to just to remember that in case you run into that. You never know, you might. I'm going to give us a word tonight. We're going off the shaker a little bit, but we're going to get on a different word tonight that we're going to drive and study on here. And I'll give this one to you so you can see. Of the word integrity. Now, little is usually said or mentioned about the word integrity in church. How often do you hear anybody teach, preach, or mention your integrity in church? That's my point. So, we're going to dig on this a little bit tonight for some things that we want to check into regarding integrity. So, first of all, looking at the meaning of the word integrity. Being in its wholeness, entireness, and unbroken state, the entire unimpaired state of anything, particularly of the mind, moral soundness or purity, incorruptness, uprightness, and honesty. And then lastly, the purity, genuine, unadulterated, unimpaired state. These all enlists us regarding defining our integrity. Now, we've been talking about some things about being with the wrong people. We've talked about being in the wrong place. And we've also talked about some other problems about the places that we're supposed to be in that God puts us. And we said last week that God has a place for every one of us in the room, no matter if that's where we're at or not. God has a set place for you. Even if you're not there, God has a place for you. And so a different thought came to me when I got to thinking of something, and this word just wrapped in my brain, so I held on to it. But I'm going to give you a thought first to think about when we're dealing with some problems in people's lives around us or in our own lives, or we see people struggling, and you wonder, how does that happen? How does that work? Well, here's something to think about tonight. A wrong place is any place where you know your Christian walk is compromised. We've been talking about being in the right place at the right time, or we might be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The three rights are the right place, the right time, with what? Right place, right time, right? Right people. Right place, right time, right people. We went through those three nicks that we've looked at and we've studied. But when we look at how well things can become a problem, the wrong place is any place where you know your walk, nobody else's, your Christian walk is compromised. Now, tell me what that word compromised in some form or fashion, or any definition or anything else you come up with. Tell me in some way, shape, form, or fashion what you think that word means. What's the word compromise? What do y'all think? Give me your layman's terms version of what you think the word compromise is.
In an unsure position.
Okay?
It's kind of hard to.
I'm gonna make it real easy for you just in a second. Anybody else got a version or definition of what the word compromise means? Okay. So, Chris and Courtney's here, they're married. And has Courtney ever wanted something that you said no, and then later you had to compromise?
It's the other way around.
Okay, did Chris ever want something that Courtney said no?
Yes.
And then Courtney had to compromise?
Any kind of pew-pew.
Well, you know, and it's kind of one of them things, you know, you hear people say, oh honey, I want a puppy. And then later they got three. Or whatever instance it comes up to. But that's the easy way that we look at the word compromise and compromising. Now that's not give and get. Let's clarify that. That's not, you gotta give and get, you know, 50-50, blah, blah, blah. Compromising is when Courtney says, Chris, we're not buying no more guns. We're not buying no more other anything else. We're not buying nothing else. And then tomorrow, which is Saturday, they're sitting in Mike's gun shop, and the deal of a lifetime is on the counter. And
That's what happens.
And then he says, you know, if we buy it right now, we're only gonna pay half price.
It's true.
And if we buy it later, we're going to pay double. And then Courtney says, well, since it's half price, I guess we'll go ahead and get it.
If
Now,
there's not a coupon, Courtney don't get it.
see, so now she has compromised.
I'm the squeaker when I walk.
Yeah. So,
This one here is like, where we go.
yeah. So compromise in our view is some things we kind of adjust to. And this picture of the cat's a good example. What really is the image versus what we can compromise to perceive the image to be. Now think about this for a moment, because I'm going to give you some things. We're talking about the word integrity tonight and compromise, but when you stay out of wrong places, you protect your integrity. When you stay out of the wrong places, you are protecting your integrity. Now, I'm going to give you some Bible to go with that for a moment of how we can see biblically that if we stay out of the wrong places, it will protect our integrity. So in Matthew 15, this is the first few verses I'm going to give you. Matthew 15, starting at 21, it says, Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, Send her away, for she crieth after us. But he answered and said, I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Here he is in this northwestern extreme corner of Galilee, and a Canaanite woman, not a Galilean, a Canaanite woman comes up to him with a request to heal her demon-possessed daughter. Do we not hear people today speaking about they think that someone is possessed? I've seen many people who are so bad, addicted, or under the influence of drugs or other substances that you would believe, if you've seen what I've seen, that they are completely and entirely possessed. Listen, when I watch a 350-pound man go up a wall into the drop ceiling and disappear into the hospital, you will agree with me that you think that he is possessed. That happened just not too long ago. I mean, literally, he went up that wall like a toy, 350 pounds, not much taller than I am, and he got him. You could hear him going through the drop ceiling. Now, this woman, Canaanite, comes in the top corner of northwest Galilee, and she comes to Jesus asking him to heal her daughter. But here's what's interesting first. Let's start with this, is that what did he say? When she came to him first time, what did he say? Nothing. Then what did she do?
Yelled,
Huh?
yelled more.
She started yelling more, she started crying more, and she continued to follow. She continued to beg for mercy. And finally, the disciple says, Hey, this woman ain't nothing but a nuisance. She is in our hair constantly, driving us insane. What did she tell Jesus to do? What disciples asked the Lord to do with her?
Send her away.
Get rid of her. Get her out of here. And he says this very quoted verse in 24. I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We see right here, and I'm going to use this for an example about our protecting our integrity and being in the wrong place compromises us. Right here, who said verse 24?
Jesus.
Who? Huh?
Jesus.
All right, so he is Jesus. You agree with that? Right? He answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Immediately, the Lord identified that he had a set of priorities. Right here, the Lord identified that he has a set of priorities. The woman came up and begged him to heal her demon-possessed daughter, and he ignored her. And he never said a word. And then she continues on, and the disciple says, Hey, this woman's causing a nuisance, get rid of her. Send her away. And only answer he says is, I'm not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, let's look at something for just a moment. There's a reason why we're looking at this. In Jeremiah 50:6, God calls Israel his people and the what? My people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have caused them to go astray. They have turned them away on the mountains. They have gone from mountain to hill, and they have forgotten their resting place. All through the Old Testament, it was seen about the one who would gather the lost sheep. Even in Ezekiel 34, you see these verses about the shepherd over them shall feed them. Even my servant David shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. And I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David, a prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken it. When Jesus presented himself as a shepherd to Israel, he was claiming to be the fulfillment of prophecy. Well, we get on to that. Now remember, let's go back just 1 second here. I am sent, not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. In Deuteronomy, he says, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people. Here's some special people in case you want to see any special people tonight. A special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So the words to the Canaanite woman shows an awareness of Israel's place in God's plan. And he even revealed through Moses that the children of Israel were a holy people chosen, a special people unto himself, above all people that are on the face of the earth. Now, here we got a demon-possessed daughter. Woman's come into a foreign country to find the Lord. That's not where she's from. He is on a mission, and he has made it clear that his priorities are set because he don't even respond to her. Well, then we get into connection about the special people, all these special people you see down here. We get to see the fact that, think about something for just a moment. Now we've talked about that the Lord decided where he was going next. How? We've discussed this. How did the Lord know where to go next? We've said an answer to this in a previous class. Jesus is in northwest Galilee. How does he know where to go next?
Spirit leads him.
Okay. So by the leading of the Holy Spirit is where he decided to go. But there's more to it than that. That's an easy answer. And I'm not letting you off the hook at it. Because the Bible clarifies to me how and why he went where he went and to who. And one of the things that we look at in connection is that right here. Here is the routing of the Lord's travels. So, through the Jews, God issued his law. He preserved his word and sent his son. And this is why that he clarifies in John 4:22 that we know that we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. Well, that's through who the law was sent. That's where the word was preserved. And then he sent his son through the Jews. When the Jewish Messiah says that he was sent to the house of Israel, he is connecting his presence with God's purpose in the Old Testament history. Because in Galatians 4, and I don't have this up here, but in Galatians 4, he says he was born under the law to redeem those who were what? Under the law. He was born under the law to redeem those who was under the law. So, let's think about it. The demon-possessed daughter, woman's begging for help, she's getting ignored. By the healing Savior is ignoring her. Because he is on a mission. He has his priorities set. Now we said that your Christian walk is affected. Let me go back and read you what we've originally started with tonight. Is that the wrong place is anywhere you know your Christian walk is compromised. So if you stay out of the wrong place, you're going to protect your integrity. All right. So we keep going. Now look at this for just a second. Everything has to have a priority. How many people in today's world have their priorities in order?
Not very many.
What do you think? How? Let's give me some worldly examples. Give me some examples of things you see people do that you know their priorities are not in order.
when they're going hungry.
Okay.
Where their kids are.
Yep. That's a good one. What else?
Gambling.
Gambling. What else?
Spending money on stuff that doesn't mean anything instead of trying to take care of themselves.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe they'll-
I love this picture. This is a great example. People do this all the time.
Got their satellite dish up.
Yeah, they got their satellite up in their house, and then he says, "You should see the
They got no
plasma." You know, you go into a house, and I thought about this before. I went into houses on 911 calls that'll have a 100-inch TV on the wall, and everybody in the house is sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
Everybody's mattress is literally on the floor, but they've got a 100-inch TV on the wall.
We bought the beds first, and then the
Huh?
TV.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't care what I watch. I'm gonna lay down.
Yeah.
But priorities aren't in order. From the very get-go, the Lord had his priorities in order. Now let's go to step number 2. When Jesus sent the disciples to preach the good news, he told them this in Matthew 10. He sent them forth and commanded them, saying, here we go, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, that's funny, because I think we just read back in Matthew 15, 5 chapters later, that on the mission, he just told them what to do. In chapter 15, he tells them, when they say, send this woman away, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Did the Lord's priorities change from chapter 10 to chapter 15?
No.
No. Priorities were set from the day he arrived, and they remained the same. Go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He did not forbid preaching to the Gentiles, but he did, however, narrow their focus area that where they went would be the most receptive. Can anybody tell me why that Jesus would tell his disciples not to go spread the good news to the Gentiles or any city of the Samaritans? Why would he do that? Oh my. Bible study just took a left-hand turn.
Did you tell them go into all ye the world and preach and
That's
teach?
later.
Later. We ain't got there yet. We ain't got there yet.
Did he change his mind?
He wrote Matthew 10 that go not into the way of the Gentiles and in any city of the Samaritans.
They were enemies of Israel.
Okay? What else?
Mainly it was to the lost children of Israel to prove to them were they gonna believe or not.
Okay.
Because they were so hard-hearted, they
Yeah.
weren't gonna have it.
Why not a Gentile and Samaritan? Why would Jesus tell his 12? Now, we said in a previous class that Jesus spent the last 3.5-ish years of his life working his hardest to train them. Did he not?
Yep.
The last 3.5 years that the Lord got to live before murder, he done his best to spend as much possible time teaching those 12 disciples. But right here, he told them not to go somewhere. Don't tell them. Not to go in the way of the Gentiles and everything. Well, we get to looking about some things, and I'm going to show you why there's priorities and why we don't get in the wrong places. And this is some good stuff when we look at it this way. The Gentiles were the people that knew the absolute least about the true God. And they were the least reached people by missionary outreach at this time in the Bible days. Samaritans knew about the law, but they were not accepted as worshipers of God. But they knew about the law. They were also unreached and proved to be among the most responsive to Jesus' message. And later in John 4, he starts talking about the harvest. But the Jews, here we go, the Jews, they had already received many opportunities to hear about God's grace through the prophets. Moses is an example. And many of them were very resistant to any message that would suggest that they were not the sole recipients of God's grace. And when Jesus talked about Gentiles as special recipients of God's grace during the time of Elisha and Elijah, his own childhood neighbors in Luke 4 tried to kill him. The worst of anything in Luke chapter 4 is when His own childhood neighbors tried to kill him when he starts telling that the special recipients of God's grace during the time of Elisha and Elijah. So, the smart one in the group was when the Lord told the 12 where to go. Don't just file out free-bearing and spread the gospel wide open, because you're getting ready to walk into a world of people that are uneducated about the one true God. Now, let's put yourself in their shoes in this biblical day. In 2024, how many churches are in Claiborne County?
Whole bunch.
Okay. How many were there in Matthew chapter 10?
None.
0. So if you're getting ready to go out and start spreading the good news, and there's no churches, there's no backing, there's no existence, there's no knowledge about what you're getting ready to walk in and present to the people, then maybe the Lord knew a whole lot more about what they thought he did when he said specifically where to go, who to tell, how to deal with these people. Did he not tell in another place that if they don't have anything to do with you, you brush off your feet when you leave and you move on? He told them that, didn't he? Well, here we've got this dealings in these issues. And we see right here, another example I want to give you is this famous verse, that I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. Who wrote this in Romans? Paul. For it's the power of God unto salvation to everyone that believeth. To the what?
Jew first.
To the Jew first, and then to the Greek. So here we go into that the act of compassion and healing of a Gentile is the view of Christ's ministry to the whole world. When the Lord did anything in the Bible concerning a Gentile, a Samaritan, or any of those people, that was a true representation or a picture of Christ's ministry to the whole world. But who is claimed in all of Paul's writing? You'll notice that everyone that believes, to the Jew first, and then to the Greek. So now we see a whole different angle. Wait a minute. The Lord said, I did not come. Let me go back to that key root that we're talking about today. Let me pull it where I get to it. Is that I'm not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, that kind of throws us off in this class, because all we know and all we've ever known is that in the church's motto, come as you are. Anybody that is heavy laden and burdened, you come and I'll give you rest. Is that not right? And that he would receive you unto himself. Does he not say that? Anybody, whosoever. We preach the whosoever. And that's true. But that's not how the Lord went out to tell the mission. That's not how the Lord sent the 12 to go tell the mission. When we start looking at how the routing went, we start seeing a few things a little bit different. So not only can you say in that Matthew 15 where the Canaanite woman is in Galilee and she's asking the Lord to heal her daughter who's demon possessed, not only do you see in front of you a test of faith. Did he not test her right there, not saying a word? Did he not test her faith to see if she'd just walk away? He ain't gonna hear me. He ain't gonna do nothing. I'm not a Galilean. I'm Canaanite. He ain't gonna listen to me. I've screamed and pleaded, and he sat right there and ignored me. How many of you all, if you come in a room and you scream and plead with somebody for help and they just ignore you, how many of you can get up and walk out?
Oh, look.
Most people. Most people's going to get up and shell out the door. Or I'll find somebody else that will help me. I can't tell you how much I see that in the ER. People come into the ER for something simple and minor. I had this happen last week. A woman came into the ER for something very simple and minor, and we explained to her that it was going to be a little bit because the lab was backed up. She was fine and all that. And like 40 minutes later, without any warning, she's out in the middle of the hall screaming bloody murder that if you all ain't going to do nothing to help me, I'm going to go somewhere that will. And before I could open my mouth, the doctor stuck his head out and he said, that'll be just fine. Just like that. And just like that, here she went out the door. I could hear her clanking them shoes going out the door. And he looked at me and he said, that was easy, just like that. And he said, we'll figure out who needs to be here and who don't, just like that. You know, and here we're working, going on. But in your mind, think about that. You showed up, the Lord's coming through here on his mission work, 12 disciples, and he said, and the woman's begging you to have mercy, to heal her daughter that is demon possessed. Demon possession we've seen before in the Bible was one that was running around the graveyard naked. What was he doing to himself? Cutting himself, screaming and lashing out, trying to kill him, all this stuff. Here we got a mother of a daughter with another issue, demon possessed, asking the Lord to have mercy and heal, and he never speaks a word. And when he does speak, he says, I'm not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Well, so I'll bring you this famous question. In our lives today, we're talking about being in the wrong places and how that causes us to compromise our Christian walk, which also affects our integrity that we're studying tonight. How many times have you been somewhere? Let me ask it this way. Let me give you this picture so you'll see what I'm saying. The famous "What would Jesus do?" He went into the temple, and what happened?
Turned over the table.
Was he mad?
He was upset
He was upset.
because they were,
Would it make you nervous if sitting in this church house one Sunday morning someone got so upset with the way people acted in church that they come in the building and started throwing the tables over, fling the pulpit off the top, throw the choir chairs? Would it not make you pretty worried
yep,
about what's going on? It'd get you attention at least. You'd be well aware something is not normal in the building. Biblically stated, it is recorded that he went into the temple where that they were doing what?
selling and buying,
Trading.
trading.
And he was not approving of that in the temple at all. And what did he do? He threw the change tables over. Does it not say that?
Yep.
Well, I take that as he was very upset. When he starts throwing tables over in the temple, he is very upset. I don't want to be there when that happens. But do you think about how many people today, if we say, what would Jesus do? They'd say, oh, no, he wouldn't do that. Jesus wouldn't do that. No, Robert, don't even talk like that. He would not do that. Here's some questions to think about for yourself. Where are some places that Jesus would not go?
United States.
Huh?
United States.
True. But where would Jesus not go? Because
California.
if you're in the wrong place, you're affecting your integrity. If you're in the wrong place, it's a compromising your Christian walk. And right on his mission, he made it clear he was on a mission. He made it clear his priorities. But he also made it clear where they were not to go. Not to the Gentiles or any of the Samaritans. He marked them clearly. Some places you're not to be. Now, the first thing in your mind is, where are places we're not supposed to be?
Casinos.
Okay. But would Jesus go in there to get somebody?
Why not?
I think he would. Everybody always jumps up and says, oh, the bar. Well, who did the Lord come to?
Save those that lost.
Seek and to save those who are lost. Well, do you think he's going to stop at the door just because it's a bar?
I know deacons that wouldn't go in a bar because their brother was in there, they'd have somebody go bring them out.
Go get him, bring him out? Yeah. Yeah. So, I had a good friend of mine one time, his son was in a bar, and he called me, and he said, I want you to go with me, go get him. He said, I want a witness when I go down there. And I said, well, how many guns do I need to take? He said, take as many as you want, but we gonna need them just like that. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, this ain't gonna go good. And we pull up at this bar, I'm not gonna say where it was at, huh?
You always need a gun.
Yeah, but we pull up at this bar, pretty rough joint, I will say. Wasn't nowhere I'd want to be at night. There was no phone service. But we pull up at this joint that night, and I'll never forget walking in there with him. And he walked right in there, and his child, 18 years old, sitting at that, no, he's 21, sitting at that bar. And he walked right up there, tapped him on the shoulder, and that boy turned around, he turned pale ghost. Then I realized why he wanted me is in case something happened to the boy, I would work on him before we got out of there. But the boy turns ghost white. I mean, he is going to pass out. And his dad never said a word. He just said, get the car. That's all he said. Calm as can be. Well, this boy beside him jumps up and gets right in the father's face. And he took to him, he said, I'm going to take you one time to sit down. One time to sit down. And he said, and I told him to get the car. That's all he said. And here we go back to the vehicle. There was no problems. I was waiting on it, but here we go back to the vehicle. No problems. Wasn't a word said. But would Jesus not go? Because you're not supposed to be in the wrong places at the wrong time. It's going to compromise your walk with Him. And at the same time, if you're going to hold your integrity, we're going to look at that in a minute to clarify some integrity about us. Where would Jesus not go? Where would He not go? What do you think?
Nowhere.
Huh?
Nowhere.
Chris is over here working hard. He's trying to figure out a place.
He went into the wilderness.
Yeah,
and
he
was
sure did.
tempted.
Yeah, he was tempted.
So he goes in places where he's tempted.
Yeah. Let's look at a couple Bible versions real quick to get your mind wheels turning on this. So what is this imagery to put you in the picture? What Bible story?
Adam and Eve.
All right, we're going to Courtney Sunday School class.
Yep.
So, God walked with Adam and Eve in the garden when?
The whole evening.
Okay, in the cool of the day, God walked with Adam and Eve. Everybody agree with that? When they were with God, now think about this. When they were with God, Satan never showed up.
He knew better.
When they were with God, Satan never showed up. What does it say about when the serpent approached Eve? Was she in God's presence at that time? No. And then we go down, I'm going to read just a couple quick verses in Genesis 2 or 3. It says, they heard the voice of the Lord walking in the garden in the cool of the day. Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. God called unto Adam and said, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou was naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? There's another place you ain't supposed to be. Right there. Eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Right there. And the man said, The woman who gave it to me, or gave us to be with me, she gave me of the tree. It's always her fault. And I did eat. And the Lord God said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. That shalt thou go and dust. Yeah, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. So, first part of the Bible, God set some places they weren't to be. They were not to be eating of that tree in that garden. And any time you find in the Bible of them in the Garden of Eden, when God was with them, Satan wasn't nowhere to be found. So if you're going to pick a place to be, you better not be eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. All right, let's look at another one right quick. Tell me what this picture represents.
Peter,
Okay, what is this? What part of Peter?
when he denied the Lord.
Okay, so as long as Peter stayed near Jesus, he was strong in faith. But when he was alone and absent from the presence of Jesus, he warmed his hands by the wrong fire. And what did he do while he was there?
Lie.
Yeah. Yeah. So, number 2 place you ain't supposed to be is alone. Alone. Away from the Lord. You ain't supposed to be there either. In John 18 it says, The damsel that kept the door unto Peter, art not thou also one of this man's disciples? And he said, I am not. And the servants and officers stood there, who made a fire of coals, for it was cold. And they warmed themselves, and Peter stood with them and warmed himself. And then we go off and they say, Did I not see thee in the garden with him? And Peter says, Denied again, and immediately what happened?
Cock crow.
The cock crowed. So, right here's another place you're not supposed to be. When you're in the place alone without the presence of God, or you're not walking with Jesus close by, here's another place that we find ourselves compromised in our walk with the Lord. Now, this is something right here. I thought this was funny, so I put this on here just for everybody to get to see. And I'll let you read it for just a moment before we go on.
This is a book.
So, when we look at all the parts of dealing with getting involved in compromise and everything else that we deal with, we look at some things and we start seeing dealing with compromise. And the world is going to be your biggest problem, wanting you to compromise. And he tells them in Deuteronomy that you'll not turn aside to the right or the left hand. And then you go down here in Hebrews 11, and by faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. As we go through this world that we're living in, we will hear many times that the world will want us to compromise and start hollowing out things that we stay on. Here's another example in Colossians. Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. And then in 1 John 2, for all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. All of this is to tempt us to compromise in areas that we should not be. Usually the temptation is always by some type of fear. We're always afraid of criticism. We're always afraid of being rejected by people, or people turning away and against us and things like that. And so because of that, and family's the big one. If you ever notice, somebody won't stand up against their family, they may just not say nothing at all. That's compromise. They may not do anything to go against somebody and what they choose to do and how they choose to live, knowing that they don't agree with it and stand with where the person's at, but in compromise, in fear of that person cutting them off or giving them issues or getting mad at them or whatever the issue is, they will compromise. Why is compromising for us so dangerous? Why is it so dangerous?
Hurt your testimony,
Okay? What else?
hurt your relationship with the Lord.
Okay? He said that if you're not hot or cold, you're what?
Look,
And if you are, I'm going to do what?
Spew you out.
Okay. So I'm going to bring some milk in here next week. It's going to be 98 degrees. Same temp as your body. And I want to see if you can handle it. What do you think's going to happen?
I'm gonna spit it out.
It's going to be, I know some people will drink it no matter what, but what do you think's going to happen? I brought some body temp
Won't be
milk.
happy to me,
Huh?
no matter what.
What? You gonna
I
throw
might
it
go
away?
some color in it.
Okay. So, compromise by its definition doesn't captivate us completely to what the world wants. It's accommodation. If you want another word to study with the word compromise tonight, it's accommodation. Instead of saying get rid of Jesus and do something else, I want to have both. That's compromise. Church on Sunday, flea market at 3 o'clock. I can't get back on Sunday night because I'm stuck at the flea market all the time to get back here. But I went Sunday morning. That's compromise. Compromise is where we accommodate to keep the Lord here and the world over here. Straddling the fence. Let's call it straddling the fence. That's another example. There's more room on the shelf for more worship. So we'll start worshiping other idols and Jesus. And I'll give you some examples of that. And this is one that I've used before with Sundays, is when parents get into children playing sports. Courtney and them's got Callie playing sports. If they compromise and say, okay, we're going to divide it down the middle, honey. We're going to go to 6 Sundays and we're going to go to 6 ball games. We got to get it worked out. We paid for you to play Little League, and they're playing every Sunday morning at 11 o'clock. So all we can do is we're going to split it down the middle, and we're going to go to 6 church services and 6 ball games. That's 12 cut in half, and that's how we're going to do it. How much do you see that going on now? A lot. They compromise. That's accommodating to them. And so we see that all over the place. James chapter 2, I'll give you this one, is that we have to be careful how we live out what our beliefs are. You can say your beliefs or whatever, but the world ain't really listening to you as much as they're what?
Looking.
Watching. It's pointless to know and speak up for the truth if we don't even act it out in the way we live. It's pointless for anybody to tell the truth if they can't even live it out and produce it in their own lives?
Actions speak louder than words.
Yes. So when our intention is to actively pursue something, such as obeying the Lord, we're less likely to compromise in those things. We'll more readily recognize the things that seek to draw us away from God and recognize His voice and start trusting more. We see right here that we go through that all the things. If faith has not works, it's what?
Dead.
It's dead. You know, some people are labeled by what they wear. Holiness people, we see them wearing what?
Long dresses and long hair.
Uh-huh. Yeah. How much do you think they know about the Bible? Give me your thought. How much do you think them people know about it? They wear their skirts, the long hair, long sleeves, but how much do you think they know about the Bible?
Much as the Baptist.
As much as the
that's
Bible.
what I'm saying, the Bible
Or
is
anybody else. They may know more and they may know less. But by that one simple image, and I'm not discounting them, I'm just using it as a simple example. If you've seen a nun go through town in whatever that outfit is they wear, and you've seen them, does that tell you they know more about the Bible than you do? No. Does that tell you they know any specific thing over you? No. Does that tell you how they live their life? Later you find out they come out of the bar wearing the costume and you thought it was a real nun the whole time, when in fact she just got out of the bar in her suit costume for the night. I mean, seriously, think about it though. We go off of that a lot than by the truth we see them living right in front of us. Now, when we look at this tonight, and I gave you all some verses, we're going to start with Roger Cook over there. These are things that the Bible says you cannot compromise. There is to be no compromising for these things. And the first one we had was 1 Corinthians 15, 3 and 6. Go ahead, Roger.
I declare, for I delivered unto you first of all that which I also received, how Christ died for our sins according to the Scripture, and that He was buried, and that He rose again the third day according to the Scripture, and that He was seen of Cephas, and of the 12, and there He was seen of about 500 brethren at once, of whom the great part remained in this present, but some are fallen asleep.
Okay. What about 2 Timothy 4 and 2? What's it say?
Preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, exhort with all longsuffering and doctrine.
Okay. We cannot compromise on those things. Right there. How much do you see today, though, that a preacher will not mention hell? There's churches all around here. I tell you what I like is the ones that I watch more than anything I'm seeing. Can any of y'all tell me what the modern version is for the churches that won't say anything about Satan or the devil? Anybody know what the new version is? It's called?
Non-denominational.
No. How they identify
Oh.
Satan? Anybody know? If you watch any modernistic ways of preaching or anything else from a church that will not recognize hell,
Speakers.
huh?
Speakers.
Speakers. It will not identify hell or Satan, devil, anything like that. All you'll hear is the enemy. The enemy. The enemy is trying to overtake you. The enemy is trying to persuade you. The enemy, blah, blah, blah. But you will not hear the devil, the one that fell, that God put in his place, the one that is trying to ruin your life, that is sent to steal, kill, and destroy. You ain't going to hear that. You're going to hear the enemy. All right, now, Jennifer, do you have Luke 16?
Yep.
Tell us what it says.
No servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other.
Okay.
You cannot serve God and man.
Can't serve God and man. This is another thing that you cannot compromise. Cannot accommodate to do both. All right, now what do we have? Romans 14:5. Tell us what that says.
One man esteemeth one day above another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind.
Fully persuaded in his own mind. How many people today are so easily going with the crowd? I'll give you an example. If they give somebody some attention, and this happens in churches, they give somebody some attention, what do they do?
It be dead.
Huh? Yeah, but what do they do? If somebody gives, I'll just use Robert. If Robert goes to church here and church up in Jonesville where he's at starts giving him a lot of attention, what does a lot of people do with that?
Eat it up.
Yeah, and what will they do?
Start going there.
They'll run right into it. Does that mean that's where they need to be? I can't say that. But we see due to the attention span, they'll run right into it, wide open, right into it. All right, Rick, what do we have in 1 Corinthians?
Is flee fornication. Every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body.
Okay. So we see these lines, and I just used a few examples of things. There is no compromise. The Bible specifically says there is no compromise. Well, here's a famous verse I'm going to give you that you all know and have heard so many times. And we see right here that resisting compromise is not up to your own efforts. The verse specifically says in Philippians that you are to work out your own salvation with what? Fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. So we see that compromise comes from us. If you are giving in to the world, it's you. You can't say, God told me to do that. The devil made me do that. We've talked about that before. The devil making me, you can't say that. That's not where we're going. And we see even on through that work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. If we are in the right place, near him, in the presence, beside him, anywhere along those ways, we find that we are provided our own strength and efforts, the ability to resist compromise. Now, we told you all a minute ago that integrity is defined as your wholesomeness, entireness, unbroken state, the entire unimpaired state of anything, purity, genuine. These are the things of your integrity, your spiritual integrity, living for the Lord. If it gets impaired, if it's not pure, if it's not whole and entire, who caused it? Everybody pointed at Roger because he pointed himself. But think about it for a moment. Your integrity is all determined if you stay out of the wrong places. You protect your own integrity. Now, I gave for the last thing is, I think David wrote it kind of as a question and an answer. But if we want to know how to have God's continual presence in our life, I've gave Roger this to read because remember, a wrong place is any place where you know your Christian walk is compromised. That's the wrong place. Now, I'm going to let Roger read these 5 verses. Is that the whole chapter? Is it 5 verses, the whole chapter? Okay.
Psalm 15.
He's going to read the whole chapter to us. I've got it up here for us to see.
Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly, and worketh righteousness, and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, in whose eyes a vile person is contemptible. But he honoreth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own heart, and changeth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved.
If we want to know how to protect our integrity and keep continual presence of God in our lives, this is the question and answer right here, Phil, that David wrote. Who shall abide in thy tabernacle and dwell in thy holy hill? We have to desire it, first of all. Let's clarify that. You have to have a desire to want the Lord in your life. Does he force himself on anybody? No. Even the saved Christians, there is no force by God to be in your life. It is total voluntary effort on your part to invite him in. How often is it?
Continually.
Continually. He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness. We have to live it and do it. If we speak our outer life is one thing, and our inward ways are another, won't work. The truth in his heart, that's another thing. What we think, what we feel, and what we say. The Bible says that out of the heart, what?
Mouth speaketh.
Yeah, abundance. Of the abundance of the heart is what you say. So it ain't hard to figure out what people, I always say, has an anger problem. Robert gets his anger problem over a tool that don't do what he wants it to. Then we'll find what really is going on. The same thing we find with a lot of people. We can't bless God and curse man. That's a heart problem. You ever see that? People want to bless God, but curse man. Can't do that. And then we go on down to, in whose eyes a vile person is condemned. Now, we have to despise evil and choose what?
Righteousness.
Righteousness. Good in all of our relationships. Because how you treat somebody else is going to affect how you and the Lord's relationship's going. And we lend money. What does it say about how we're to lend money?
To make it.
Huh?
To make money.
Okay. We're not supposed to do it with that. We're not supposed to do it with interest of our own. It's not supposed to be for our own gain or some type of deceitful gain. And we find that so much more in the things that we go. We go all through these. Continual presence of the Lord in our lives. And he tells us at the end, David tells us, I think he writes this from experience. I don't think he writes this just from the inspiration of his mind. I feel like that David wrote this in Psalms 15 from experience. He experienced some good hardships and times on his own. Did he not get depressed? Did he not on his own, out all to himself, feel like he was nothing and on his own? But he that does these things shall never be moved. You cannot compromise with the world. You can't compromise with some people. Some people, there's no compromise. You ever hear the Bible even tells us that if you can't come to an agreement and work it out, you are to go get somebody and bring them back to you. And if that don't work out, you take it before the church, and then what do you do?
Turn them on.
Be done. Be done. So we see very commonly tonight, if we go back to it, that our integrity is only protected when we're in the right place. Our integrity is determined by where we're at. And a wrong place is anywhere you know your Christian walk is compromised. Now, this is not to discount anybody anywhere, in any way, but you think about how many churches compromise a lot of things. I've seen that a lot. A lot of churches compromising a lot of things. Give me some examples of things you see churches do to compromise.
Preachers preach, they're not qualified.
Okay, that's one. They're preaching and they're not qualified. What else is a way of compromising? Any other examples of things churches do that are a compromise?
Let anyone join the church.
Okay, could be. What else? Some compromise.
Compromising from old time church is cutting of the hair, wearing jewelry, wearing makeup.
Yeah.
That's a lot of compromising
Yeah.
from the old church.
Because they look like the world. So in the imagery, they say they look like the world. You get to looking at it in a lot of things in modernistic days and times. Well, let's just use an easy example. Would that TV be in here? By true definition, if we went to what I call old time ways, there's a lot of people and some preachers wouldn't have this nowhere 5 miles from it. That's true, is it not? There's some would not have this anywhere around. That to them is compromised because we brought technology of the world into the church. And depending on how you use it and what you do with it, I'd agree with that, depending on what it's doing. But when we look at compromise in our own lives and our integrity, our pureness, trueness, our everything about us that we try to protect our integrity is all affected by where we're at, our place. Anybody got something to add or a thought tonight? I know everybody jump at once. Anybody got something tonight?
One thing about where the world, where the church compromises bringing the world in, we know of a church up in Jonesville that come Super Bowl time, they don't have Sunday night service, they have Super Bowl, they have TV down in the basement,
Mhm.
and they have the Super Bowl game on. And that's compromising with the world, that's bringing the crowd in there and having a good time
Mhm.
in the world.
Mhm.
That's like when I got transferred to Texas. That was the year the Cowboys was in the Super Bowl. I went to that one church that morning,
Long time ago.
at the end of the, y'all preached pretty good. I said amen out loud, you know, I do that. And everybody turned around and looked at me. But that was the easy part. Worst part was in the end of the service, the guy stood up and said, anybody wants to stay home, watch Cowboys, it's all right. I'm right there in church. I'm not kidding.
Did you stay?
I never went back to that church.
You didn't stay over and watch?
Was that in Texas?
That was in Texas,
In
yeah.
Texas, yeah. Yeah. But that's all right, he said.
Evidently.
That's what he did. Yeah.
I didn't know where that's the first church we found,
Yeah.
looking for one, you know. We went to it,
Yeah.
but that happens.
Any other thoughts tonight or input?
We're in the book of Genesis where you read, God asked Adam, did you eat of the tree that I told you not to, more or less you know? And verse 12 said, and the man said, the woman whom thou gavest to be with me. So was he blaming the woman or was he blaming God?
Blame the wife.
He blaming the woman.
But he said,
Cause
that
Adam
woman
wasn't,
that you gave me.
Mm-hmm.
well, Adam wasn't deceived. Eve was deceived, but Adam went in with his eyes wide open.
Yeah, he was there.
Because of his love for Eve.
Yeah,
For his love.
For his love for his wife,
Yeah.
he couldn't see being departed from her from no time.
But was Adam blaming God for giving him the woman?
He
Or
was
was he blaming the
He
woman?
just tried to find
Make
a way
excuse.
out.
He was trying to find some place to get it fixed. He's trying to say, honey, I'm gonna fix this one way or the other. I'm gonna try my best, see what we can do here.
another place where we kind of compromised, like you showed me, I think it was last time. Where worship, where we, we got theater, dark theater,
Mhm.
lights flashing,
Mm-hmm.
just to make it acceptable with the crowd, with the worldly crowd. And you find churches nowadays, they even have services for that kind, and the regular service.
They've got them split for every type of crowd. A friend of mine told me one time that he was in a church and a woman came up to him and said, could you just quieten down just a little, you're too loud. So she told him, said, you too. He was in Middlesboro. But the pastor there, he said that this woman, a church member, came up to him and said, I've been pastor here for 8 or 10 years and she's been here the whole time. And he said, she comes up to him one Sunday and says, preacher, can you just lower the volume a little bit? You're just too loud. And he said, I'll try my best, just like that. He said, I never thought about the thing of it, after that. But he said, that's what she said was that, could you just lower your volume down? Now, he said, I thought about, now what if I did that? What if I made a dead, dire point when I got up next Sunday to not raise my voice, not get loud, not do anything? He said, I ain't done any of it intentionally to begin with. He said, he had a good example. He said, I'm in a church with 100 people and no microphone. I'm making sure people can hear me. You want to speak up enough to somebody in the back to hear you. He said, I wasn't in her face screaming at her, just like that. But that right there is how simple compromise fits. Compromise, we really want to be part of this at the church, but we've got something else we're doing on Friday nights right now. We really want to come, but we wish you could do it on this night because we've got something we're doing right now. Bingo has got a $5,000 first win by 8 o'clock if we're there. And we really, want to be. The Sassy Zebra has got a special door prize, and we don't really know that they'll change their time. We can't get them to move it. So we really want to come, but could you change it? Could you move the date? And all through that, I see the same thing of what I went back to in Matthew 15 when the Lord said, I was sent for the people of the house of Israel. And no matter what comes my way on the path, I'm on a set path of priorities. Because everywhere you read in your Bible, and I love looking through that genealogy track of where everybody in the New Testament wrote that salvation comes to the Jew first. Well, it makes a lot more sense to me now why that the Bible teaches us, and I believe it this way, even I'll say, some people don't believe what I'm about to say, but I believe it this way, that I believe that it does take a certain amount of knowledge and understanding to be able to be saved. And you say, well, what does that mean? If you don't know what the gospel is,
What you're being saved from.
you can't be saved. If you don't know what the gospel is, now I don't mean you need to quote it to me word for word, but if you can't tell me that the Lord came to this earth, He died on the cross, He rose the third day over death, hell, and the grave, if you can't even tell me that, in any way, shape, form, or fashion, the Bible says that you must believe in your heart, but you first have to have a what? What's it say?
Broken heart.
A broken heart and a contrite spirit. Well, how would you know how to have what are your heart broken about? I mean, think about that. Conviction only comes from knowledge. Hearing comes by the word, and the word comes by hearing by get it mixed up. Hearing comes by faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word. You have to hear. You have to. You have to have something to the knowledge of truth before you can move to it. And you think about that, I'm not saying there's any determined age, there's no intelligence level, nothing like that. But when we think about that's really structured as to why the foundation of churches is on a mission to get the lost saved. But do you ever notice that the primary mission isn't as much about trying to get them in and get them saved immediately? It's about let's get them in and let them hear the word and let the word find them out. Let conviction on its own, the Lord reveal to them their loss, and they come with a repentant heart to be saved. Well, that's a whole different outlook when you look at the Lord saying, I was sent. I was sent to people of the house of God. You look at the way that the missions is and what He even told them not to do, not to go out. And we've got people sitting over in Islam, foreign countries right now, the Christians over there that we know are under heavy persecution and being executed and all this stuff. We've got all these people over there in Islam and all these anti-Christian places trying to tell them about Jesus. But it always comes back to my mind, no fault in that whatsoever. But what about right here? But what about right here? These people within a mile of this door don't know nothing about it. Couldn't tell you an arm or leg about what anything's in that Bible. No different than the people sitting in Islam. But the Lord directed a path on who to go and how to get them. And He told the 12, you start with the ones that know. The Jews have heard it. They may have refused to heed to it. They may have refused to believe it. But they've heard it. They've been taught. That's where we start. We start, how do we not work on ourselves, the church, ourselves, before we ever reach the world? It starts the same way, same way, on everything we do. If we compromise our integrity as a church to give in, sway, and relax to something that the world wants us to go with, you have lost your integrity with the world. Because they'll say, oh, they'll let anything in. They've got Robert Cook down there teaching Sunday school, and him up there throwing hammer and nails at his brother all week long. I mean, you know, that's what they'll do. They'll run with it. But that's how easy compromise fits us out of the place. And in the wrong place, it messes with our integrity. Anybody else got anything tonight?
You talk about people that's generally around this area has never heard anything about the Bible and stuff. But have you ever thought about, they have, by what they see?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What they see, and a lot of people you go up to witness to, and the biggest reason they won't have nothing to do with church is because I don't want to be like them Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be like them Baptists.
The hypocrite.
Yeah, I don't want to be like them.
You're a what?
Yeah.
My dad was pastor church up in Pennington, and he went out visiting in the neighborhood. This fellow lived within, I'd say, 100 yards or less the church. And he told him, he says, I will not go to that church. And he said, I don't care to tell you why. And he called the deacon by name. He said, that deacon told me to go to hell. And he says, I'll never go to that church. I'll never put my foot in that church. And
All
like
it
I say,
takes is one person doing something like that too.
he said, like I say, you know, and that was, he was a lost man, and he actually lost his life not long after he, well, I guess he dropped after he graduated. He wrapped his car around a tree.
Did he kill people there?
No, I guess he did. But we never did hear whether or not he ever was converted. He was, like I say, he was looking to see, and what he seen, he didn't want nothing to do with it.
I always say with the dangers, you know, you look at people in your own life and around you, and the people in the most danger is the ones that know. You know, no matter what that is, they know. And so it's kind of like that dumb innocence thing about people that just blindly ignorant and didn't know it. And now that they know it, they've corrected it. That's one thing. But that's why I look at the Lord saying, you know, up here, from a logical standpoint, missions work, start with the ones that know it. You can definitely grow something if you've got a starter seed than if you don't have one. So it makes a whole lot more sense in the mission field, even as a church, but even going out of the church, that you start with the people that will hear you. Let's use it that way. People turn a deaf ear, but not everybody. You know, the Lord specifically worked with a lot of different people, and worked with Gentiles, the Greek, the Jew, all them. But if you ever notice, everything is identified on that path, starting with the Jew. When he was on the cross, what did they put over his head?
King of the Jews.
King of the Jews. He still was in the Messiah lineage of the Jews, because they knew more about him, the law, than anybody there. They had been educated, and they knew anybody else. Can you imagine the Lord, before he died on the cross, saying, go to them people first. Please go to the church people first and get them corrected before we worry about the ones that don't know anything about me. Let's go after the ones that have heard. Let's go get the ones that do know the law. Let's go get the ones that's been under Moses and the prophets, Elijah. Let's work from the ground up. And you think about it, it's a lot easier to get a foundation of the people to work with and build on if the people you're starting with know something. They know something. Even if they're choosing not to agree or believe it. That's where he told the disciples to go to first. Not straight to the Gentile that knew nothing, had never been told, had never heard anything else, nothing. He didn't say to go to them first. He specifically said where to go and what to do. And it's very path-giving if you study like that. And Paul wrote that quite a bit in there, to the Jew first and then to the Greek. And then it goes on from there, and we see that. But that lineage tells us so much about how to protect ourselves and being in the right place and not affecting our integrity. Anything else tonight?
Like I said, like the lesson's been taught on tonight about, especially about being where you're supposed to be in the doctrine, what you believe, and stuff like that. 'Cause like say even that verse you had me to read, the next verse says, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having each years, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables." Like I say, you think a good foundation, just like you think that when the Lord went to the children of Israel, that they had all the prophecy and all that they would be willing to jump on board right then. And like I say, a lot of churches today, you go to them, you think you get a receptive audience. Like I say, they'd rather be turned to faith. They'd rather be patted on the back and say, tell me how good I am. Don't preach this doctrine is what you should believe and what you should do, what you should not do, where you should be at. Just leave that up to me and the Lord.
Yep. Turning to the compromise of the churches the way they do, that's something you'll see people wish-wash back and forth. They'll go with you on one thing today, they won't tomorrow. But right in the very presence of the Lord, as much as I'm sitting in front of Tony, was a group of people that watched him do the miracles, but then come up to him to try to turn himself around and get him caught in a lie. Who was it?
Pharisees and
The Pharisees.
Sadducees.
They wanted to get him to twist his own words and prove himself wrong, and they were right there. They seen it for themselves. But they demand compromise. They demand that you have to get back to the law and get it back to what we know. We can do magic too. You need to explain yourself. And that's what we see all day long. All day long. That's what people do.
Was they not Jews also?
Yep.
Uh-huh. Yeah. They knew. They knew. Anybody else got anything tonight?
I know a lot of people says, I'm Jewish, I don't have to do that. I'm saved anyway. I'm one of God's chosen people. I don't have to worry about it. You just go and do what you do, go to church.
Yeah.
I even heard a big major Baptist preacher say, the Jews are fine right where they're at, they don't need salvation.
Yeah.
I heard a big one. I didn't know the name if I said it,
Yeah.
but like I say, if you can't have Jesus, I mean, you're not gonna get there.
Yeah.
How far do you go out before you don't become a Jew?
Most of the Jews now are atheists, they don't even believe in a God.
Yeah, they're far away from what that
Yeah.
version of Jesus was.
But they think they're right on cue.
Huh?
They think they're right on cue.
Oh, they're on, yeah, they're the closest thing to real
Right.
in their mind, yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah. Anything else tonight? Any prayer requests?
Yeah, remember those, but
Remember those.
our brothers.
Any others tonight?
Remember, Alicia Barnett's family, she passed away.
I think she was 40-something, wasn't she?
43.
Yeah.
Remember my family.
Do you remember this tonight? Anybody else?
I'd like to remember my brothers, I got a chance to, let them hear a little bit today.
Do you remember
them
this?
in prayer.
Any others?
I have lost in my family and remember my nephew.
Do you remember this? Any others?
Remember the family I was talking about that her mom passed away, that one of our customers, they're gonna have a hard time. She lost a baby about a year ago, and the year before that she lost a baby too, so it's been rough on.
Do you remember this? Anybody else? Any other prayer requests? If not, we're gonna ask Chris May to dismiss us tonight. He's hiding. He's accusing you of a lot of things.
The Lord Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, and thank you for allowing us to gather together and learn more about your word. And watch over us as we go our separate ways tonight, and keep us safe until we meet again. Amen.
Yes, if you don't do it.